when you disagree with those that you're closest with in your life, your family and your friends, and you feel like no one around you, in the moment that you do speak on something, there's this shock, there's this concern, because in their minds, they're not used to people disagreeing. And when they do see that, they think, oh my goodness, my son is becoming an extremist or something. And it goes immediately to that place. So you naturally learn to navigate these things lovingly and carefully, and having a reason when you do speak. And it's not about winning or destroying someone in a debate. If it's a loved one,
right,
you don't want to beat
right.
them. It's about the pursuit, hopefully, of wisdom and objective truth. You're trying to help them find the least bad option you've found. You found something you think of that is of value, and you're hoping to help them see that. It's a different dynamic than saying, this is my claim, change my mind.
No, I understand that. And it's how people sustain change, right? Their outlooks change, their feelings change when they arrive there on their own, right? As opposed to you arguing and destroying something that they held, some belief they held, it just doesn't hold up to argumentation. That shifts over to something else. That's something, what do they call that? The doubling down effect or something. There's an effect, a cognitive effect, and when people are talked out of one thing, they double down in other areas that are related. And it's defense. While if you can reason with them and supportively, that's what I'm getting at, which I think you're doing, which is, you said lovingly and caringly, that is the opposite of how people are used to engaging today, right? And so it came because you were working with your family. You didn't want to be objectionable. You just wanted to, reason out loud with them about what you were seeing and what you were thinking. What is it about sort of questioning things that are just sort of accepted, much like that kid in the video things are just so. What is it about that that's so radical? Why do people immediately run to, you're a bad person, you're a radical person? Is that just part of what they're used to building in terms of their rhetorical response? Is that if I can convince myself that you're a bad person, a radical person, we don't have to get into this because you're just a bad person?
That's part of it. Because when you can't contend with the logic, and suddenly they're being faced with scrutiny where they have not been faced with scrutiny before, because they've never encountered anyone to disagree with on that. Well, when an argument can't contend with logic, the most simplistic tactic is to neutralize the conversation. We see this in various forms often. So whether it's a discussion about J.K. Rowling, well, that's forbidden. You're transphobic, or whether it's a conversation around the implementation of legal rights around trans identifying people in restrooms for the sake of a woman or a daughter, right? Can we discuss the legal implementations about this? Is not about your ability to identify as trans. That very conversation is now, when you expand the definitions of these words. So transphobia, when you change the definition of transphobia, when you change the definition of racism, that's a tactic that then we've seen this in history as well. The first thing that happens is questions are forbidden. So,
what are you pointing at particularly?
What am I pointing at particularly? Well, I'm thinking about
history
discussions around, communist China.
Right. Communist China.
The Soviet Union, the rise of Germany,
Lenin takeover,
World War II.
Nazism, absolutely.
French,
the Jacobins.
The rise of any
Jacobins were the same thing. Anything centralized, anything ideological, it goes bad. Yeah. Are you finding, you brought this up, is that something you're bringing up with your students?
I think there's a lot of value in studying World War II, studying Winston Churchill, especially as I've been being labeled as kind of the critical thinking guy or whatnot. And I'm trying to formulate all this and write it down. And really, it's always intrigued me. I never thought I would, when an opportunity presents itself suddenly, obviously I want to make the most of what's given to me. If I do have an opportunity, I want to try and pursue all that is possible with it. And in that process, I'm I've always been a student of World War II. You know, both my grandfathers were in World War II, and I've just been fascinated by it. You know, as a grad student, I wanted to do my thesis film was about World War II in Harvard during that time. And I think there's a lot, just understanding critical thinking, using Winston Churchill as an example of the ability to make a difficult decision for the sake of the long term, as an illustration of the difference between intelligence on the surface and actual wisdom.
Well, you just really packed a lot into that. I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly that wisdom, people have lost track of knowledge versus wisdom. Wisdom is something that comes from experience, and the entire body is involved in a wise decision. Literally, your autonomic nervous system, how you feel about everything goes into the instinct and the intuitions, and then the mind application of a really good decision. That is a lot. You said you have an opportunity, but not only you've been given an opportunity, this is an opportunity that could have tremendous good. A lot could be done for people. A lot of benefit to many by pursuing this, what you're calling this opportunity.
I hope so. I don't know what it means yet. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what will happen. And by opportunity, I just mean it was pure dumb luck that video happened to do whatever it did. I never could have anticipated any of that. So then it just happens. And then you just have to figure out what to do next. And there's two avenues presented. Do what's easy, which would be easier, just let it blow over, which it will, right? And okay, or to try and do something like what you were saying, and because I received a lot of messages from other educators, and I know there's a lot of concern out there, and I've just through my own personal experiences, but I don't want to just be a person with an opinion. That's why that video I think was interesting, because no one really, there's so many people out there expressing their opinions. If I had been just talking to that student and expressing an opinion, that would not have resonated with the audience or the student.
Yeah.
Right.
And because you're such a careful thinker, I wouldn't presume to know your opinion on anything until you had thought it out. You know what I mean? I don't think, because I know you're not going to be attached to dogma or ideology or a tribe. You're going to just think it through and you'll have your opinion. It must be, I imagine you can sort of protect yourself with that because they can't accuse you of being a part of either side, whatever. But by the same token, this is what people need to be doing a lot more of. Now, you said you're having these kinds of conversations without being filmed and without them being public. Are they changing? How's it going? You're kind of the critical thought guys, so they may want to engage with you in ways differently than before. But what's the experience as it's moving along? What do you seeing change? Go ahead.
I think to be honest, most of my students are pretty oblivious to all that. They don't really think of me as the critical thinking guy. It's just something online. People that are, if they're looking at that stuff, they might be interested in it. But I find that students, when we do this, when I do start talking about Winston Churchill, or a student asks me, what's the difference between, I keep hearing this word socialism and fascism. What do these things mean? When we do talk about these things, their eyes kind of just light up, and suddenly you'll have 6 students in my little multimedia room that are, normally not that, suddenly they're stopped and they turn and they're watching carefully and they're just quiet. And so I'm not sure how to articulate what's happening there. But you can. But
the class it's a film class, right? It's essentially a film class.
It's not at Emerson, I teach film producing from script to screen, which includes screenwriting. So that's where my fascination with storytelling and how we make sense of the world through stories and story structure and archetypes. Studying that. But I mean, my first year of high school teaching, I was teaching things like journalism as well. Just because they needed someone to teach those things, I was never really expecting to do that. But it's really just how to work with this ever-changing landscape of working with technology, art using technology, digital art, you could say, but working with camera, podcasting, it's an exciting format,
but
though.
think about it.
Perhaps
Think
that's
about
why
this.
it leads to conversation.
It's just interesting to me, and the reason I had you describe the class that this is the class where critical thought is having sway and has an opportunity to take hold. It's not where it used to be, which was.
But they don't even know what the difference between
socialism and communism and capitalism. I understand.
I know, but it's not taught in high school.
But the window is open in this creative endeavor to be thoughtful, and it's just interesting to me that everything else has become dogma and indoctrination, and they're not being taught to think about things.
I think history is just overlooked in the high school setting.
Oh yeah. Go ahead, Warren.
I've been thinking about this because critical thinking, any teacher could incorporate this into their curriculum. Math, science, it could be. These students want to have conversations around all sorts of things. It comes up spontaneously. It's just a matter of allowing them to go there and allowing them to happen and engaging with it and guiding a little bit here, asking the right question here, poking a little bit here. What do you mean by that? It's the opportunities I never expected.
Yes, there's all kinds of. That's how I was educated. There's all kinds of versions of it. For instance, my calculus class. I was at a liberal arts college. My calculus class literally was a Newtonian history class. They just said, well, here's what he was looking at a graph, and here's what he thought next. What do you think he concluded from that? How would his thinking have gone next? What might he have done with those thoughts? And we tried to come up with the calculus in the room. And then as we came up with the calculus, well, look what he found next. And here's what he was thinking. What might he have thought after that? And oh my God, I had trouble learning calculus until I was in that class, and I've never forgotten anything because of it. Rather than trying to memorize differential equations or integral equations, I had a historical arc. And by the way, I struggle with problem solving along the way, which is another way to get your brain to change. But it was a historical arc of where this came from. And this thing we're applying, I'll go apply it in physics class later. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Where this thing came from is no one teaches anything like that anymore.
Yeah. And it all connects to philosophy as well. You could ask a student, okay, when we're doing mathematics, is a mathematician, when they make a mathematical breakthrough, are they creating that mathematical breakthrough, or are they discovering something which already existed in the same way an archaeologist discovers something? How is it that these patterns exist within our world? And these patterns are no different than the things that we're talking about, whether you're debating a political conversation or critical thinking around J.K. Rowling. These patterns exist beneath the words that we're using. And that's fascinating to me.
And there's me too. And there's many ways, and then you could get into neuroscience with that and talk about the brain and what the patterning is in there. I mean, this is the point. This is how these things connect together. Look, Brett Weinstein. You know who Brett Weinstein is? Speaking of canceling, Brett, who was canceled. So Brett was telling me that when he was at Evergreen College, every semester it was one class that you spent the whole day doing exactly what you're talking about. It was like a symposium where you'd go from one thing to the next, how all these things connected. His thing was evolutionary biology, but I'm sure he ended up with philosophy and had to be in math. I mean, you can enter all of that through, look, it all used to be philosophy, right? That they used to call the physics was in a philosophy text, right? And the psychology was in a philosophy text. So these things have very close relationships, and it's all this thing, this instrument up here in our skull that sets most of it up. But listen, I just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to share in that video. I hope the young man that was the object feels good about it. Does he?
Oh yeah. And I asked him before I never expected anyone to see it. I just shared it on my little YouTube channel, which is kind of my little teaching portfolio of some past teaching and some film projects. And he was fine with it before I shared it, though we didn't expect anyone to really see it. We thought maybe 50 people would see it.
Yeah. And
he's a smart guy.
What is your YouTube channel if you'd like people to go there?
Yeah, it's Warren Smith Secret Scholars Society. Or at Secret Scholars.
Warren
I'm not
Smith.
Sure which one would be easier to search.
Okay, at Secret Scholars. Is that also, what are you showing us there, Caleb? 33 million views.
Elon Musk highlighted it.
What?
33 million views on that
I was
clip.
going to just ask. I was going to go, by the way, how many views did it have?
Yeah, with 30. Well, that's just Elon's
Just
retweeting of
That's
it.
That's the entire world. I mean,
did J.K. Rowling,
literally.
did she respond to this at all? Did she interact at all with this?
I'm not sure. I didn't see anything from her.
Oh, okay.
But
I mean, there's so many
perhaps
people
I'd like
watching
to
it. How
think
would
in
you
a
know?
world,
But
maybe.
yeah, I would. Yeah,
that'd be
she seems
really
to be
cool.
on this
I
topic.
think she's
Yeah.
awesome.
So awesome.
I think they used to call your position verisimilitude or something like that, or they were words they used to. Verisimilitude I think is a little different, but
Scholar.
it was. Well, it just no. It was words about keeping. We in medicine we called it equanimity, just maintaining your sort of cool during all of this, and just sort of going through it with people. Yeah, Caleb.
The best thing about this, Drew, is that I have no clue anything about Warren's politics. I don't know anything about which side of the aisle
That's
he's
the
on.
point.
This is the whole point.
Absolutely.
This is what education should be.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be about like the beliefs
Yes.
of the teacher. It should be about what's right, like freedom of speech.
And think how truncated their education is if they've never been given an opportunity to think stuff through like the way Warren has challenged them. So listen, keep it up. There should be a whole school behind you. Please write it down or create a video or more movies or more something. You have an opportunity here to make a difference. Obviously, if Elon Musk is retweeting your video, you get
Use that brain power
33
for
million
good.
views. And a lot of people appreciate it too. And again, it's not just teaching critical thought; it's the manner in which you're going at it, which is what makes it digestible. Creates the opportunity for people being able to adopt what you're doing and begin to re-engage. And this isn't even argumentation; it's just thinking together. Really,
I wish more colleges had great thinkers like this, even, in the podcasting, class or whatever. You're not going to get the brightest bulb in the pack in that class, but no offense to all the podcasters out there.
There's
but
a podcasting class.
yeah,
What do you
well,
mean?
I mean, it's teaching media and stuff like that. But I wish more professors really thought about stuff like this and weren't so far to the left in all their
we don't care about
glorious.
which side. I don't care which side, frankly. I don't care.
But they're always pushing the beauty of communism and socialism in these colleges, and they're not even. You know what I mean? They don't teach everything.
They're willing to arrive there, but they've got to just tell them what this is and how it works and what the alternatives are.
Right. It's
That
not
kind of
just
thing.
all.
And why Winston Churchill had such a different idea. Why did he not go for socialism? Why wasn't he not? And to what extent did he think it was a decent idea? It'd be interesting to hear his thoughts on that.
That should be a class in every college.
So